Hi, I'm Tracy, and this is Working Man's Revolution. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Good afternoon. It's about mid-October, and I'm very close to the end of our growing season. As you see, as I go through the plants here, we get much less sunlight about this time of year. It's supposed to freeze, not tonight, but tomorrow night, so I intend on getting the rest of the tomatoes off the vine. We'll gather everything, and with those, I intend on making some salsa, some diced tomatoes, stewed tomato type things that I can use for Italian sauces and different things like that to cook with. So I intend on grabbing the tomatoes off. I'll also be grabbing the onions. Well, some of the onions off today. I'll let those go another day as well. I intend on leaving the carrots in for another day or two. The frost and the cold will actually help push a little of the sugars into the root, which will make the carrots sweeter. I intend on grabbing those, not tomorrow, but the next day maybe. And from there, I'll start canning some stew, whether that be chicken stew or beef stew. So today, my goal is to grab the tomatoes and a few onions. I'll show you the remainder, or what's remaining of the green beans as they dry on the vine, and we'll just gather some things up. As I said in a previous video, I was unable to collect the last of the green beans before they'd gotten too large. When they get too large, they get a little fibrous and stringy. So I decided to leave them on the vine to dry. You can see that they're getting pretty close. They're drying pretty well. I'll come back out and gather these. And I'll use all of these next year to replant and reseed what I have. That's my intention with these. I've got 3 different variants of green beans. This right here was a really nice green bean. It had a really good flavor. It was not, it wasn't fibrous or anything. It was very tender. They cooked really well, and they just had a really good flavor overall. So these are called a contender green bean, as I showed in a previous video as well. But so I'll be gathering all these, and I'll make sure that I keep them separate and isolated so that I can keep track of what I'm planting and when I'm planting. Once I get going here, I'll shut all the water off entirely, and then on a later video on a nice day, I'll be able to come and show you the drip line itself. For now, that's our green beans and what we have planned with them. As I'd said, this is kind of the end of our growing season. You can see everything starting to die back a little bit. We haven't had much cold yet, but we've had some cold. You can see I've got a ton of tomatoes on here. I'm just going to grab those now. That way I can use them to can and cook with. Otherwise, if I leave them go even through tomorrow, I'm going to end up losing all of these tomatoes. So I intend on getting all the tomatoes off today, both the cherry tomatoes and the regular tomatoes. And I'll gather the rest of these peppers as well, and I'll use those for cooking. I'll use the jalapenos and the others in the salsa, and depending on what I'm cooking, I may add some into the diced tomatoes as well. They're really good to cook with. You can see the onions are really close. I can actually start pulling some of these now. I've got a bunch of them, but I want to let them go just a little longer as well. I'm going to gather all these probably tomorrow, maybe the next day, and I'll be able to use them as well in storing and for cooking as well. I'm going to pull a couple of those. We'll pull just a couple now. Really nice onions here. I'll grab another. So I'll gather these onions and tomatoes and a few other items, and we'll get cooking and canning. Well, as I'm gathering, I've already got about a 5-gallon bucket of tomatoes. There's still a ton of tomatoes on here. I'm gonna have to go get another bucket or container so that I can finish gathering the rest of these. But you can see it's a pretty good harvest of tomatoes so far. All right, well, this is today's haul of vegetables, mostly just tomatoes, a couple onions, and some peppers. I got about 40 pounds of tomatoes, I'd say. Probably 10 pounds of the cherry tomatoes. Got the 3 good onions there, obviously. Plan to cook with those. And it's probably more than I expected to get. But nonetheless, we'll get these canned as salsa and go from there.